All right, welcome, everybody. Welcome back to season 6 of Mind Over Music. I'm your host, Channeling Modine. So happy to be with everyone this evening. You're listening to Radio Azad, where your voice matters. We are live from across 163 countries around the world. It's a free download on the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store. It's the Radio Azad app. We are also live on Facebook and our FM radio station, 107.9 FM HD4. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Nathan Johnson, joining us from the 16th District, representing the the Texas Senate, and now is running for Attorney General. He just put his name in this year. He's been serving since 2018. Nathan, thank you so much for joining our show tonight.
I'm delighted to talk with you.
Yes, it's so great. It's so great. And we're going to have an incredible show. First off, I want to start off by asking, how was your Father's Day?
Oh, it was terrific. It was terrific. I have 3 kids, and 2 of them happen to have grown-up jobs in San Francisco.
Nice.
So I flew out and spent the weekend with them. It was really special.
It's incredible. It's incredible. You know, you've been representing, and you've been a part of, public service, at least since 2018. Talk to us a little bit about your journey, what you've learned, and what's making this transition so imperative, going from the Texas Senate to the Attorney General.
It's interesting. The cycle right now is pretty similar to 2018. In the years leading up to 2018, we've had single party rule in this state forever. It was Democrats for a long time, and now it's been Republicans. But when you get single party rule, and I don't want to be too partisan unnecessarily here, I think this is true, but it's true everywhere. When you have single party dominance, politics tends to go nuts. And in 2018, I was the first Democrat elected to Senate District 16 in over 30 years. And the reason was the Republican Party had lost the confidence of the voters there. They put me in office. And that legislative session, which was really tough on Republicans, was probably the most productive we've seen in 30 years, because the whole legislature came together and was working on important stuff. We still had our silly stuff on the extremes, but and sometimes that stuff is illuminating. But really, the competitive political cycle forced government to be more responsive to a broader set of voters. And it was really a good session. Since then, we've drifted. And we are now once again at a point when the kind of stuff that people are talking about in the headlines is not very well connected to where voters are, to where people are, to where families are, to individual experiences. What are the hardships that we're facing? What are the opportunities that we could have or that we're missing because our politics is failing? Do we still have democratic institutions, right? Do we still have schools? Do we still believe in each other? We have reached kind of a crisis point. And the Attorney General's office of the state of Texas is at the center of that for a number of reasons. First of all, it's been badly tainted. I'll just say this, the office has been abused for political and personal gain. And in that time that it has been abused for political and personal gain, it's not doing the work that it's supposed to be doing. So there's the whole mission of cleaning up the office. But the other thing is, as we look at a more national problem of a breakdown in democratic institutions, of faith in government, of responsiveness responsiveness of government, attorneys general around the country are the ones who get people back in line, who reapply the rule of law, who make sure that democratic systems work. And that is very much in jeopardy right now in this country and in this state. And so while I've very much enjoyed my time in the Senate, I feel I've been successful there. I think I've made a difference. I've passed 130 bills. I work with my Democrat and Republican colleagues. It's getting more difficult. And the stakes right now are dire. And when I look at this office, I really feel like I can bring something important to this state, whereas the guy I'm running against, I think, is going to give us more of the same problems that we've had in the office.
Yeah, this is a pivotal moment, and we know that the midterms are coming at the end of this year. You were able to win by an incredible margin on our primaries. Let's talk a little bit about what's been happening at the Attorney General's office, what the challenges have been, because it seems like, especially in this show and in the community, we don't want to be too partisan on one side or the other.
Yeah.
In the time that I've spent in the Capitol, just as a regular citizen, just coming in, supporting certain House bills and things of that sort, while Congress was in session, one thing that I learned is when talking to other members, of the state and public servants, things don't pass because of partisanship. you have to have a well-balanced bill, and it has to be something that represents the people. And that's what really brings us back to this idea of patriotism. And it's such an important year this year,
Mm.
celebrating our 250th of independence. Walk us through, in a in a bipartisan way, where we need to start realigning the Attorney General's office, and what that vision looks like moving forward.
I really appreciate the question and the observation that when you go into the Capitol, there are partisan things invariably, but most of the serious work shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And the reason this is such a critical moment is even the serious work is becoming partisan. Like I said, I've passed 130 bills. I'm in the minority. I could not pass a single bill without majority Republican support. So it is possible for us to work together. And in a state with more than 30 million people and a $3 trillion economy on a $300 billion annual state budget, it's not possible for you to operate along just a partisan dogmatic agenda.
Right.
Nor do the people want us to, frankly. Most people I talk to do not say that the job of the Attorney General is to defeat the left or to defeat the right. That the job of the Attorney General is, perhaps more so than almost any other office, pretty straight down the middle objective.
I agree.
It doesn't mean you're moderate. It doesn't mean you're left. It doesn't mean you're right. It means ultimately you have to serve the people of the state and the institutions of the state primarily through making sure that the rule of law applies equally and everywhere.
I agree.
And that does not mean you sue the Trump administration because they're Republican, or you sue the Biden administration because they're Democrat. It means that you uphold civil rights and political rights, and that you make sure that businesses are not hit with improper legislation, that our Constitution is observed. And I think what people are feeling is that the government is just a game that's going to favor whoever takes power. And they've seen plenty of evidence of that. And you have to have an Attorney General who maybe is a Democrat but will sue a Democratic president, or will shut down the actions of a democratically controlled legislature, or Republican, irrespective. And I have always believed that the best answers are those that you come to when you have to confront someone who disagrees with you. The Attorney General is going to make sure that everybody plays by the rules, but I expect to get input from everybody. When I win, if I win, when I win, I'm not going to be listening exclusively to Democrats. I'm listening to everybody who has something to say.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of the role is you toe the line right down the middle. We are now coming up into a precipice of incredible economic viability. There's so many individuals, people that I talk to, young people that are scared of AI and what's happening with the economy. But as you had mentioned, one thing that I think the current administration has done really well, at least in Texas, is we've been able to grow the economy. As you mentioned, $3 trillion in economic growth, or not economic, but in total economy. If you think about what that means from a global standpoint, that would put us ahead of all of Russia's GDP, right? 3 trillion in the state of Texas. We're going to continue to grow that. Tell us about what that plan looks like and the hope for economic future for everyone.
Yeah, I think we're now ranked as the 8th largest economy on earth, the
Yep.
state of Texas. And with that comes a lot of great benefits and great responsibility. At the same time that we have this mammoth economy, at the same time that we create, so to speak, more jobs than other states, at the same time that we bring in new businesses and create new businesses, we're doing great. We still have persistent 14% poverty. And Texas is a state of contradictions. We have the greatest healthcare on earth and the most people who don't have it, right? We have enormous wealth and systemic pervasive poverty. And so as we grow, we have to ask ourselves, how do we want to grow, right? Do we want to increase the size of that economy and have 1% of the population retain the benefits? I'm not saying that as a lefty or a righty. I'm saying that's not very efficient, really, in terms of allocating resources. So when we look at the future and we see the particular concentration of capital into fewer hands, particularly in technology industries, which I think naturally gravitate towards monopoly. I think we want to ensure that we have fair markets that are competitive, because that's how we get the best products and that's how we get the most people employed and earning the most wages. It's not top heavy. It's not forced by big government. But we do want to set up market rules because markets are things that we create. And markets themselves are indifferent to outcomes. They just go. And if they wipe everybody out, that's what they do. And if it means they're probably not structured very well. I personally believe that if you structure markets well and allow competition to go at it, you're going to get good results. But I think what we've done, I do think we have been remiss in enforcing market rules. We have allowed some people to own the table. It's not efficient. It's not fair. And nothing's ever perfectly efficient or perfectly fair. But I think we can do better. And the Attorney General, if you'll indulge me just for a second, historically in the Constitution, the framers of the Texas Constitution did not trust concentrated power in the hands of anybody. And so they created an independent Attorney General, not somebody the governor nominates, the people choose, charged with basically two things: make sure government's not corrupt, and make sure businesses don't overreach their power, that they don't control government.
Right.
And I take that job very seriously. And I think if you do those two things, you'll have a responsive government and you'll have a commercial sector that serves the needs of the people without controlling them.
Yeah, this is beautiful. I mean, you're absolutely right. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you think about the crux of capitalism and competition, this is the backbone of the American economy and why we've been able to have such incredible success. But there are these unfair business practices. I think regulatory capture is one of them, and why we're not able to innovate at the rate that we are, because we have these monopolies, and other business practices that are not fair, that kind of keep competition out of the economy, which is fundamentally against what capitalism really is. And I think we've misunderstood that for so many years. Can you reframe that for us, and what the differences are, and why you believe that a lot of constituents kind of misunderstand this, or they don't feel like they have a rightful place in the game?
Well, I'm glad we're talking about it, because I think maybe we can help each other with this one, because it is a difficult topic to understand. People say they're for or against capitalism, but capitalism is just a structural method of arranging the economics. It means that it's private ownership of the means of production and the means of distribution. And it's the greatest force in history for creating and equitably distributing wealth when it's regulated.
Right.
When it's not, it's no more efficient than the Vikings rowing their boats over and burning your crops and enslaving your people. I mean, that's free market, right? But no, we have rules to make sure that people are competing in an arena and in the way that they ought to be competing, so that you do not have just conquest. And I think we've kind of come back to an era of conquest and exploitation and extraction. And that's not only not very nice or not very fun, I don't think it's sustainable.
Right.
And so I don't think you need to be against capitalism to be for effective government regulation. And I think the viability of markets themselves depend on effective regulation. So I think that's the fundamental point. It's not really about socialism versus capitalism.
Yeah, I think this is where everyone gets it wrong, is because, regulation is not over-regulation. And just because you have regulation doesn't mean you can, or just because you want to reduce regulation doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all, and that there's no, boundaries to the game. We have to function in a very balanced market, and really ensure that businesses, competition can thrive, that we are innovating in the right direction to serve the common good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a mistake to turn your back on markets as a way to serve the common good. I think markets can serve the common good, but left to themselves, it's like a forest fire. It's just going to burn everything in its path. So, can we use our fire to cook food instead of burning down our houses, right? That's the conversation we really ought to be having. If we want to take a concrete example, take a look at electricity. Texas has been a national leader, and having our own grid has been criticized a great deal, but it's also been very nimble. And it has allowed us to have lower energy prices. As much as we're frustrated with increased prices, they've generally been lower, and still are lower than they are across the rest of the nation. We've had higher rates of innovation. It's not because we have unbridled capitalism in energy markets,
Right.
but it is because we have energy markets, whereas a
Right.
lot of places don't. And it's difficult, and it requires constant attention by legislators, and legislators by nature are not experts. So we turn to experts, and experts disagree with each other, and it's all very hard. But the fact that it's hard does not excuse us from doing the work, because if we do it well, the results are really quite good.
This is brilliant. And here I kind of, Senator Johnson, I want to give you your flowers because you did such a good job in after, the power outages that we had, after everyone started understanding, the dynamics of ERCOT and how we are kind of, our own independent energy grid. You came in and you helped reinforce and restabilize the energy grid, but in the same breath, not being against what the fundamental beliefs and structure of what ERCOT is, kind of doubling down on that and understanding the freedom and independence and the benefits that we get to be able to function as our own energy grid and not dependent on the rest of the federal energy grid. Talk to us a little bit about that, because this is such a great, well-balanced point between the bipartisanship.
Thank you. And it actually was some of the most enjoyable work I've done in my work in the legislature is on the grid, because there are no Republican electrons. There are no Democratic electrons.
There you go.
There's just electricity, and there's people and businesses who need it. If the world had developed in a different way, Texas would be part of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and everything would be fine. But it evolved in an anomalous way that gave people the power to innovate. There are still times when I wish we were better coordinated with FERC. But for the most part, I think we have something quite special in Texas. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that it continues to be innovative and to serve people. And we have had massive failures with the Texas grid where I think were the fault of people getting a little too complacent with the magical things that the grid had done, and not realizing that the market wasn't keeping up with changes in technology. And that's on the legislature before I got in. But it is difficult. It is very difficult stuff, and I don't fault anyone too much. We're all flawed. But if you try to take a partisan view of managing an electric grid, you end up with really bad policy. Mm-hmm. And I think we've done a pretty good job of fighting it out, sometimes in partisan ways and sometimes nonpartisan ways, but allowing all of the ideas to be in there. And I personally have worked against and with powerful Republicans, and my Democratic colleagues have been there with me. And most of the time, we're not wearing a D and we're not wearing an R. And sometimes we are. Sometimes we are. And that's really when it gets dangerous. I just finished a draft of an op-ed that makes fun of and criticizes what I think was a very partisan idea to try to punish financial firms that invest in renewable energy, as if they were against oil and gas. And most of these firms were invested in oil and gas and renewables. And that was pure partisan politics. And it caused great economic damage, and it was an embarrassment to the state. Get the partisanship out of the fundamentals. There's plenty to argue about. There's some philosophical differences, but those philosophical differences ultimately need to yield to results.
Yeah.
And if you dig in too much on your partisan ideology is unlikely to understand market forces.
This is yes.
If you can put it on a bumper sticker, it's probably not smart enough to run a grid.
Right. This is so good. Because you think about the dynamics and how complicated it is to run the grid, but the idea that with a smaller grid, being independent, having ERCOT there, where initially everybody was so frustrated with those rolling blackouts, when you think about FERC versus ERCOT, after everything was said and done, after you had put in so many different stop gaps and address a lot of the challenges and issues with the energy grid, I think people would look at both systems and they would say "Fork that," right? Like we are able to be nimble enough to be able to control our own destiny with regard to energy and our economy as it relates to that. Because as we see today, the number one economic driver across the board is going to be based on energy. It's going to be data centers. It's going to be AI. It's going to be companies that are supporting the infrastructure and the supply chain that has to do with moving electrons, whether that's through compute or whether that's through electricity, or downstream in further AI models and things of that sort, and manufacturing. We're going to get into robots. It's just
Yeah,
it's insane. So
it is the current economy. And when you try to look at the grid in this kind of Republican Democratic lens, and let's say for shorthand, you say, oh, the Republicans are for oil and gas and the Democrats are for renewables. Hey, guess what? Renewables are powering oil and gas today. Okay.
absolutely,
We are
absolutely.
number one in wind. We are number two in solar. And we are, a massive exporter of natural gas, which has been a good transition fuel, right?
Yeah.
Coal, not so much. And that has put us in a position of drawing data centers, which has been and promises to be both beneficial and possibly catastrophic, depending on how we handle it. And I think it's going to take a lot of grown-up voices, stripping away partisan nonsense to make sure that these data centers, which will come here, they will come here, that they don't take up all our water, that they don't raise your electricity prices, that they don't cripple the grid, that they don't extract profits from our state and ship them back to their shareholders, only for us to be holding damaged lands and infrastructure, that instead they actually bring power, that they help stabilize the grid, that they help maintain level electricity prices, preferably lower ones, and that it draws some of the best and most exciting minds and enterprises to this state that we've ever seen. And that's really all up to good management.
Yes, I completely agree. And Senator Johnson, I think this is the kind of the arms race that we're talking about when we're looking at a more bipartisan approach, which is it's not about Democratic left, renewables on the right. It's drill baby drill, and they don't actually coalesce together strategically. You need both, and you need to run them both strategically at the same time to help support the economy. And at the end of the
And all of them should be clean, responsible players. I got to say, I am not for drill, baby, drill, and don't cap your well and pollute our water and pollute our air. Nope, I'm not.
I agree.
And I believe that natural gas plays an important role in this state, and emissions should be controlled and monitored, and people should play by the rules. And we've got good players and bad players. And part of the role of the Attorney General is to make sure that polluters don't get away with it.
Yep.
But I'm not against the industry.
Yes.
If they are responsible players, and the responsible players are out there,
Yes.
and they're working together with the renewable industry.
Yeah.
So I'm actually quite sanguine, quite optimistic about our potential future with respect to energy and technology.
Yes.
I'm also anxious about it. I want to ensure that we get it right.
Yeah, and this is the role to do it. So I'm really happy that you're running for this office. We're almost at time. This has been an incredible interview so far. Would love to have you back. For
Love to talk to you again.
I do. Can I leave you with a little bit of a hardball question?
Yeah, we haven't about talked to any politics at all, so go ahead.
All right, this is it. All right. So right now, as you mentioned, we're the 8th leading economy in the world. We have California on the other end, and they are the 5th leading economy, I believe, in the world now, and it might be even higher than that. But you think about the 14% of the homelessness crisis that we have here. It's even worse in California, but they have more money. They don't have the infrastructure, but they are spending tons of money on these programs to help address these challenges and issues. What do you believe they're getting right or wrong, and what do you think the difference is in how we should handle the 14% and creating more economic equality or equanimity or across the board?
It is a hard question, and I'm not an expert in California, but I do know a little bit about homelessness, and that for all the different things that people theorize that contribute to homelessness, most of them do contribute to homelessness, right? But the thing that is the absolute strongest correlation is the lack of available housing and high-priced housing. And in the case of California, like most problems, this problem was decades in the making.
Mhm.
And so they're doing various things to try to address the problem, and all the corresponding drug problems that go with homelessness. Is this chicken or egg? And
Right.
it's both, right? Mental illness and how well you treat that. There's all these factors that should be addressed, but ultimately, the biggest driver is housing, and California got way, way, way behind on that, and they're making great strides right now to try to fix that. But in the meantime, once the problem is there, you can't wish it away. You can't suddenly say, we're going to build houses. It's going to take another decade. And I do believe we ought to have social services to help people get on their feet. I do believe that's a compassionate society. I believe that's a responsible society. Texas is not in the same situation that California's in because our housing crisis is relatively new. But we could be in the same situation. I think the legislature on a bipartisan basis has already taken some very important steps to address homelessness. I personally passed a bill to create some different kinds of housing last session. So I think housing is one of the top issues. I think mental health is a huge issue. I think education is a huge issue. But ultimately, we also have to recognize that we do have people here who are suffering, and they do have families. And whether you want to look at it from a moral perspective, where it's the right thing to do to take care of people, or you want to look at it from an economic perspective and say, you know what, if we take care of these people in the right way, it'll cost less. I think this is one of those instances where doing the moral thing pays economically.
Mhm.
And I think we have that over and over again. I think we have that in healthcare. So I think we need to have mental health policy, drug policy, housing policy, education policy. A lot of it comes down to policy.
I completely agree, and I think this is one thing, and I'm going to call out my community on this. On Radio Zad, we have a vast majority South Asian listenership, and this is the thing that we're kind of getting wrong. We got our education right. We're hard workers. We pay our taxes, and we also participate in the small business economy as well, vastly.
Very much so.
And so but we're not a monolith. And one thing that we're not understanding well is how important policy and shaping policy is to reflect our values into the community, to also be engaged with the greater community as well. And I think that after 9/11, we've just done a poor job as a community trying to come back into the fray and caring about our neighbors and really showing our patriotism and what this country means to us and the opportunities that we were able to be able to derive from being here. So,
and the fact that you're here talking to me right now, I think offers a great deal of promise to the state, and it makes me very happy. And I have many friends in the Asian American community, and the level of political engagement over the last few years has just absolutely spiked.
Yes.
And we are also seeing a level of a very sad level of disrespect.
Yes.
Towards the Asian community.
Yeah.
Statutorily, culturally, in pronouncements of leadership, and if I hope that drives people to be involved, and I think it will. But we're also talking. You and I are talking about the grid.
Yes.
We're talking about policy things. So I think it's going to be a good thing for Texas to have the rising level engagement of the Asian community. I really do.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to pick your poison, and you got to say, okay, well, do I want to get into the politics of that topics at hand, which are very important, but fundamentally it does come down to showing up and showing up for policy. At the end of the day, that's really what I believe personally, and that there is going to be challenges where you have this fundamental dichotomy between, do we have religious freedom or do we believe that Sharia law is going to take over? And there's some insane narrative that I, as a Muslim, don't even understand what everybody else is talking about when we have those discussions.
Yeah, I'm not one of those who's worried about Sharia law taking over. Yeah, I'm one of those who thinks people get to practice their religion because it's foundational principle of this country.
Yeah, So this is what the country was literally based on.
There's some real silly narratives out there.
Yeah, and I think it's ignorance. It's ignorance on both sides, but I think that we need to do our best to try to educate and partner with everybody who doesn't quite understand what the structure or what the religion is actually meaning to say. But you can't do that unless you kind of get back into the community, unless the community really trusts our greater South Asian community and understanding that we are patriots that really do care and do want to make life better for everybody and improve the quality of life for our neighbors and ourselves as well. So it's a challenge. It's a dichotomy, but we're just kind of, we're spinning
Well,
those plates.
I hope to be well connected and to be an important conduit from the community to the broader political influence, because I do think it's important. And unfamiliarity, I think, breeds fear,
Absolutely.
which often then takes away the whole conversation, and we don't want that. And most of the time, when people become familiar with the unfamiliar, they're much more accepting.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. They just need to see your face. They need to see your face. They need to see that you're involved, and they need to see that you care. And that's how we draw from our common humanity, I believe. Senator Johnson, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry we're out of time today, but would love to continue this conversation. Would love to have you back in the next few months just to get an update on how your campaign is going. Would love to, have our community go out and support. If anybody does want to support your campaign, where would they go? How would they get in touch?
On any social media channel, it's at Nathan for Texas. My website is nathan@nathanfortexas.com. I welcome all inquiries and certainly do need your support. This is a very important election. We didn't talk much about politics, but I'd love to talk with you again.
Yes.
Because I think we have reason to be hopeful, all of us.
I that is music to my ears. The fact that we are in such a doom and gloom, place that everyone's giving up hope is not a healthy place for any of us. And I don't think that those are the political points that we should be, we should be perpetuating moving forward. We should be bringing hope back to our communities, because the future, I do believe, I agree with you, Senator Johnson, that I believe it's bright. I think that I'm very hopeful for the future, and I'm a little bit of a futurist, but I'm also a realist, and I see that we have great economic potential for the future. So can't thank you enough for your service. Can't thank you enough for allowing our community to be a part of your campaign as well. And we hope to do more work together.
I look forward to talking with you again.
All right, thank you. All right, that was Senator Nathan Johnson representing District 16 here in the heart of Dallas. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after